I'm happy to see you.
I'm so happy to see you. I follow you on social media, so I see you're doing well.
Yes, and likewise. How's your family?
Oh, everybody's great. I'm just so happy to be back home and in LA
Hmm.
and with my son. And I'm just happy. Like, I can't imagine being anywhere else but home right now because
Absolutely.
we have the sun. I mean, that's why I started my mental health virtual fundraising campaign because, we're blessed. We are so blessed. I have a house. I got a pool in the backyard. Um, this a lot of times it feels like a regular day for me, but then when I realize I can't hop on the plane and go visit my mom or go visit my friends or go visit my grandmother, that's when the darkness sets in, if you will, or the lowness. But that's why I started the virtual fundraising campaign because, like I said, I'm blessed, and I can't sleep at night knowing that people are suffering during this time because they don't have the means, and that did something to me. And we've helped over 1,500 people so far in our first phase, and we're going into the second phase now. We're continuously raising money, and I had to do something. I don't know if you're aware of my foundation.
I was just about to say, I've had the opportunity not only, I think, to see the impact of your foundation, but to hear you speak, I think, really personally about what started it and the impact that it's already had.
Mhm.
And I was wondering, I think, for the people that may not know, if you could give them the same touch point that you gave me in terms of what became the catalyst of really focusing on the importance of mental health, particularly for the Black community and communities that have already been a minority in so many spaces.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we are always in the African American community at the bottom of the totem pole for whatever it is, and certainly healthcare is one of those areas where we lack and we fall behind. And when we talk about health, we never include mental health.
Hmm.
So that means we're not talking about it at home. That means we don't have representation in that field for us. That means there's not a lot of culturally competent therapists within our reach. Not that they don't exist, they're there, but you have to do the digging and the searching. And the stigma around mental health in our community is what disturbs me most. When it's not cool to be vulnerable, when it's not cool to not be okay. Like, if you watch the news, anybody, whether you're black, white, or any color, you're going to suffer from PTSD. And in this time right now, where we're suffering in mental health, in health, and we're seeing this rise in these aggressions against us. In this time where we're supposed to be isolating and trying to stay safe. And so, for so many reasons, it's why I started this foundation, because I felt like we needed a face that some people trusted. I felt like we needed to talk about it, just put it on the table and just sweep that dust up from under the carpet. And like I said, like, just eradicate that stigma, because that's what's killing us. And it's going to continue to kill us if we don't start talking about it and dealing with it.
Absolutely. And I think you hit on such an interesting point of the idea of the strong Black woman. But I think it's important in this conversation that we're saying that there's so many qualities of a person that can coexist. And
Yes.
I think exactly to your point regarding stigma, even whether it be through media or just through our general lack of access to mental health conversations, it seems as though it can be one way or another. You are strong and therefore you don't go through this set of issues. You don't have to deal with pain. You may not have any mental health issues. Or if you do have to deal with your mental health, then you're a certain type of person. And I think what's been proven time and time again is that, first of all, there's no such thing as a type of person who has to deal with their mental health. We all have to take care of our mental health. But there is a duality to it. You can be a confident, strong, motivated person. Most people are. Most people have incredible qualities. I think everybody has an incredible quality about them. that has to be recognized and celebrated, while not minimizing the fact that you still may be going through something. And just because you excel in one area of your life doesn't mean that we can ignore this other really important area.
Absolutely. And that saying, check on your strong friend. It's, I remember the first time I lost a friend to suicide, it was when I moved out to LA. And I remember this young man, and he used to do my hair, and he was very jolly, happy.
Mm-hmm.
You would never think he was suffering. But see, that's why I'm always trying. That's why I always strive to be nice in life, because you never know what's behind someone's smile. And that taught me a huge lesson, because he was like, oh, we need to go out. We need to go get something to eat, get some cocktails and catch up, blah, blah, blah. And one day I called and he wasn't there. And I'm like, what's going on? And I kept getting these messages. Did you hear? Did you hear? And I'm like, no, I didn't. And he took his life, and opened my eyes to people suffering behind smiles.
Yeah. And I think a lot about so many of my peers right now who are going through this moment of transition, whether they are coming from school and suddenly they're back in different home situations, or they're coming from work, or unfortunately, so many people have to quarantine by themselves or don't even have the privilege of quarantining. And I think this has been said many times before, but it really rings true that this moment in our lives, this pandemic, has really brought to light just how many systematic discrepancies there are between access to adequate mental health care, all these issues that we've dealt with throughout the decades of the unequal treatment of different groups of people have really come to fruition in this moment in which everyone really needs that extra level of support regardless. And so I oftentimes think about the fact that so many people, their only mental health resources were offered by their school.
Yeah.
And are now no longer available or offered. And I think similarly in my house, mental health has always been a conversation, something that I could be very open about with my parents, but not everybody has that home base or that foundation. And I wonder, I think in your experience, and I think even in the work that you're doing now, what are the small things we can be doing kind of regardless of our situation to not only check up on ourselves, but to check up on the other people around us?
Well, the first thing you have to do is to check up on them, pick up the phone. Right. Because what I'm noticing with myself, and I keep talking to my therapist about it, and I'm noticing like, okay, I'm preparing myself for this new norm, right? Mm-hmm. And right now the new norm looks like it's making us fearful to be around the people that we were used to being comfortable around. You know what I mean? And I think the more each day that goes by, I feel myself getting further and further and further away, because my grandmother's 96. I don't know if I'll ever feel comfortable going around her. And so, like I said, the first thing to do is to pick up the phone and check on. Just hi, stay in contact. Use FaceTime now more than ever. I say, people always want to be strong, and that's okay. I really despise the word. Don't tell me to be strong. I don't want to be strong right now. Sometimes I don't want to be strong. There's a time to be strong, and then there's a time to allow yourself to be vulnerable. And I just try to allow myself to be wherever I am in that moment, whatever it is, because, feelings, they come, they go, they're fleeting, right? But if you smother them, that's when they fester, and you hold on to them and they fester and they turn into something else. But if you allow yourself to feel whatever that is in that moment and be okay with that, because there's no such thing as perfect. When my therapist told me the perfection is the perfect lie, I was like, woo. Freedom. I wanted to ask you questions, because my heart goes out to the youth, because you guys, this world is so different from when I was growing up, and there's guilt on my part. Oftentimes in my meditations, I develop tears. Like I weep, because I feel like we dropped the ball. You know what I mean? We dropped the ball, and we're handing you this world that is at its tipping point right now. And it's up to you guys to fix it. And that's a lot. And what I'm noticing now that I've been heavily involved in the mental health field and doing philanthropy work there, I'm noticing, and raising my own son, I'm noticing that it is you guys, these new kids, these kids that are coming up in this technology, this technology driven world, the coping skills aren't there, or they're lacking, or they suffer because of the things that I feel like your innocence is stolen. You know what I mean? Like, you don't, the span from the time you get to be innocent is so short, when we could be naive and young and for until like 13 almost, you know what I mean? And now literally at 13, you know things that adults know. You're having adult conversations, and that's disturbing to me. And again, like, how do we help? How can we help? How do we help the youth? And that's why I'm implementing my program and my foundation into schools. We're starting with the kids, because that's where we have to start, you know?
Yeah, you bring up so many great points. I think about one of my close friends. There was a moment on her campus, I think last year, before any of this pandemic happened, where it really highlights just what a time that we're living in which there were young people that had to, that were all coping with really monumentous traumatic moments in their life. And their university didn't have any mental health services. And in terms of your pointing out the importance of a culturally competent therapist or mental health touch point, that wasn't there. And so I was witnessing my friend having to be of support to people before they could even be of support to themselves and acknowledge what space did they need when they were there, and having to be of support to friends and having to constantly be in these really heavy conversations because there was no support at the university and there was no support kind of in their area. And so I think about that just in regards to the fact that we were already living in such a crazy world prior to this. And exactly to your point, we're already living in a world in which, because of social media, it's been a double-edged sword, because it's allowed us to connect. It's allowed us to have really honest conversations in ways that haven't been able to be had before, because there's a smaller barrier between us connecting globally. But at the same time, I remember that moment of the amount of violence that happens, the amount of times that I stumble upon a video that of somebody that we have to rally behind, but just having to constantly watch, whether it be videos, having to constantly hear news of these terrible things that are happening that will always affect our communities one way or another. I think we have such a broad sense of community, which is beautiful, but it always feels like a family member is being aggressed towards, a family member is being attacked. You're constantly in that mode of having to protect the people around you. And so intergenerational support has been, I think, crucial. I mean, you know, both me and my mama, and you know your family, and I think that's something that rings true, is the importance of that intergenerational conversation, of even the question you asked of how can we be of service. I don't know how many young people get the opportunity to answer that question and to be heard.
And like, have you found it? I mean, I know you have incredible parents. I've met your mom; she's amazing. But you're blessed enough to have parents where you can have these conversations with. But did you ever find it difficult doing what you do as a young thespian and navigating a normal life, just trying to have a regular life and doing what you do? How has that affected your mental?
I'm somebody where my main mission is to be more honest with myself, quite honestly, because I have, to your point, I have great parents that really intentionally served as that barrier so that I could go enjoy what I did for work and not have to deal with all that extra mess that comes with it. I remember being 16, one of the first things that was said to me by somebody that I had worked with was like, "Oh, are you going to emancipate? AKA, are you going to go choose to be an adult?" Because I was finally the age where I could do that. And it wasn't even like they weren't looking at a 16-year-old and thought, "Happy birthday, Yara." They thought, "When can you grow up a little more?" And so because I had that barrier, because I have parents that understand this industry, I feel like I was exempt from a lot because they're very much have been there with me, even on Grownish. I think the transition to me being on set by myself at the age of 20 happened slowly. They're very present. I think they established how I was to be treated, how my cast was to be treated, how everyone else on set was to be treated. And so that definitely helped. But I'm the type of person in which it's always been something that I do, where I'll be, whether it's talking to a doctor, talking to whoever, they'll be like, oh, so do you live a high stress life? Which I absolutely do. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I work 16 hours a day. And yeah, I've been doing school, and yeah, I've been doing this. And then by the end of it, I have like a one Denzel tear coming down my face. and then I'm like, well, I guess I do live a stressful life, but it's because I realize I oftentimes don't give myself the space to process just how much is coming at me in a day.
Yeah.
And so a part of my mission has literally been to take care of myself as well as the people around me take care of me. And to really be able to be honest with myself and be transparent with myself, such that it doesn't require my parents stepping in to be like, are you okay? Because it doesn't seem like it. Or do you need space? Such that I can be aware of where I am to say, hey, guess what? I need space right now.
Yeah.
And so that's been a large mission, because you're absolutely right. As great as an environment I've been in, I still haven't been exempt from that level of stress. And the conversation to even say I need support is still difficult. And so I'm constantly trying to figure it out. I'm constantly in conversation with my friends, trying to figure it out for each other.
And now, do you feel like there is a stigma amongst your peer group around mental health?
I think we're definitely much more open about our state of mental health. I think the conversation doesn't happen. I feel like it happens interpersonally a lot more often than it happens just in terms of having a really public conversation about mental health and the way it looks. And so I think amongst my peers, if I'm talking one-on-one with a friend, I think people have continued to become more open, but I feel like there's still a stigma with how do I communicate that with the world at large? What does it look like to need support? I think I live in a generation that are overachievers, and it's beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to watch people have businesses in their early teens, to be doing all of these incredible things, to be running movements. It's incredibly impressive. But I think with that not necessarily overachieving, because there's nothing bad about it, but with that high level of processing and high level of continuing to have to move forward, there also sometimes isn't that moment to pause to say, well, okay, I need support, and what does that support look like, and how do I tell people that I need?
Or in general, across the board, all over the world, it has to change the stigma surrounding mental health. Because when I think about it, I go, well, people can feel so free and easy to talk about their thyroid. People can even talk about having a breast removed from breast cancer. You know what I mean? They can talk about all these horrific diseases and things, but no one can talk about mental health. Why? Your brain is still attached to the same body, and that's because of stigma.
Yeah, and I think self-care has been co-opted to mean face masks and sleeping in versus, first of all, acknowledging it looks so different for everybody. And we were just talking the other day about yoga and other mindfulness techniques, and how that's been co-opted as something where it's like, well, first you have to have a certain socioeconomic status to be able to go do this and have access to what you need, when initially systems, whether it be yoga, whether it be other mindfulness practices, were meant for people who had crowded lives, meant for people that didn't have horizontal space and needed to find vertical space. But I think even the way that systems work now, such that that's not accessible, that's actually went from something that is accessible to something that's actively inaccessible, something that's hard to get, something that comes with a price point now, really speaks to just how the lack of transparency publicly about the need for mental health care has also allowed for this other things to happen simultaneously, in which access to necessary means of taking care of yourself have become out of reach, because they've been made to seem like cool little trivial expenses. If you have the ability to afford this, then you can have access to this other level of care.
It needs to be looked upon as a necessity. It needs to be something that you need to check on. Like, you get a physical every year. This is something you need to be checking on your mental every month. If I could, it's something that you really, we must, like, even me approaching 50, in our society, it is so cool to look young, right? Everyone keeps talking about, oh, girl, you black, don't crack. Okay, I already know that. Tell me something I don't know. Well, my deep depression and this dark cloud started, I was like, what is going on with me? Well, guess what it was? Duh, perimenopause, but no one's talking about it. We're so busy enamored with, ooh, girl, you don't look 50 weird. Like, about what is physically happening. No one talks about it. No one talks about it. So I didn't know. And then it took me to be vocal. Like, this is what is happening to women of my age. So if you feel dark, I used to be the party favorite. Now all of a sudden I'm, oh, the weight of the world is on my shoulders. And I was always the life of the party. Well, that's because there are things biologically happening to me. And I need to talk about it so that other women aren't going, well, something's wrong with me. No, there's not, actually. This is just a part of life, of nature, you know? But if someone had just sat me down and told me, I'm going crazy. You know, you could have given me a heads up, somebody. So I think just the more we talk about it and the more that our community and people see their peers talking about it and making it normal, I think the more lives we will be able to save and help.
Yes, that's why I'm always inspired by what you do. And I remember the first moment I really heard you talk about your touch point and why you started your foundation, and how moved I was to figure out, like, what are the small things I could be doing to focus on mental health in a way that I haven't before.
Because the thing about it is, right, I'm a spiritual person, right? And God has given us gifts. This thing we do, acting, and we have a mic and we have a platform, we have a stage, and we can reach so many people. So then it's like, well, then God gave you this gift. How are you going to be a gift? And I see you doing that, and I'm very proud of you. You're just one of the ones that I'm just so proud of. I watch you.
Thank you.
And you just make me proud. And I'm so excited to see what the future holds for you, because I'm getting to the point now, it's time to pass the torch, you know? And you just excite me. You excite me for the future of art. And I just see your heart, and I see where you're headed, and you're just amazing. And I just commend your parents because I know that's their hard work. And I'm just proud.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for you. And, you know, I mean, not only does my entire family love you, but I feel like from the moment that our paths crossed, you really set precedent for what it looks like to be of support in an industry that will so easily sell you on the idea of competition. And I feel like to feel your love from the first second I met you, I'm grateful for that experience, and for the fact that we get to reset what this world looks like. We get to reset what this industry looks like, reset how we can be in relationship with one another, but you've paved that way. So I am just following.
Absolutely, baby. Well, that's good. I hope I leave a good blueprint for you.
Yes, you have.